In April 2022, Netflix reported its first subscriber loss in over a decade. The stock collapsed 35% overnight, erasing $54 billion in market value in a single day. Within 2 years, Piracy had surged to 216 billion annual site visits, higher than before streaming even existed. The streaming industry had spent 15 years and hundreds of billions of dollars proving one thing: convenience beats piracy every time. Then they systematically dismantled everything that made streaming convenient. They raised prices. They fragmented content across a dozen paywalls. They cracked down on password sharing. And they watched piracy resurrect itself from the dead. This is the story of how an industry won a war, forgot why it won, and handed victory back to the enemy. By 2019, Netflix stood as one of the most powerful consumer brands on earth. What began as a DVD by mail service in 1997 had transformed into the default way humanity watched television. Netflix had 167 million global subscribers, operated in over 190 countries, and generated $20 billion in annual revenue. Its market cap exceeded $150 billion, larger than most legacy Hollywood studios combined. But Netflix's real innovation was not content, it was convenience. For roughly $10 per month, users gained unlimited access to a massive library with no ads, no malware, no region locking, and no friction. The value proposition was devastating to piracy. Torrent traffic collapsed. BitTorrent's share of internet traffic fell from nearly 1/3 of all bandwidth to a fraction of that by 2018. Netflix alone consumed over 15% of global internet traffic. Anti-piracy groups openly admitted what the data proved. Netflix did more to reduce piracy than any lawsuit, crackdown, or enforcement campaign ever had. Research confirmed the relationship was causal. When content moved off Netflix, piracy searches for that content increased by 20% almost immediately. The company's competitive advantage was simple but devastatingly effective. Legal was easier than illegal. Netflix loaded faster than pirate sites. It worked on every device. It offered better reliability than torrents or cyberlockers. For the first time in history, piracy felt irrational. By the end of the decade, the streaming model had proven a fundamental truth about consumer behavior. People prefer to pay for convenience when the legal option is genuinely better than the alternative. Netflix hadn't just beaten competitors, it had beaten human nature. The war appeared to be over. The crisis did not begin with Netflix alone. It began when everyone else wanted to be Netflix. Between 2019 and 2021, every major media conglomerate pulled its content back behind proprietary paywalls. Disney Plus launched in November 2019, instantly removing massive content libraries from Netflix. Warner Brothers rolled out HBO Max. NBC, Universal introduced Peacock. Paramount, Apple, and Amazon deepened their streaming investments. The result was fragmentation at scale. A consumer who once paid $10 for functionally unlimited content now needed 4, 5, or 6 subscriptions to access the same breadth of programming. According to industry surveys, the average household streamed from over 4 different services by 2023. Cumulative costs easily exceeded $70 per month, approaching what consumers once paid for cable. Simultaneously, Netflix's growth engine stalled. The pandemic had pulled forward years of subscriber growth into 2020, creating an artificial peak. When lockdowns ended, the plateau became visible. North American subscriber growth flattened. International markets could not compensate fast enough. Then the numbers turned negative. In the first quarter of 2022, Netflix reported its first subscriber loss in over a decade, shedding 200,000 users globally. The company warned of another 2 million losses in the second quarter. Wall Street's reaction was immediate and brutal. Netflix stock collapsed 35% in a single day, wiping out over $54 billion in market capitalization, the largest single-day decline in company history. The stock fell to its lowest point since 2018. As Morningstar analyst Neil Macker observed at the time, he said Netflix's moves to monetize password sharing were unlikely to produce meaningful near-term results. Many households sharing accounts, he warned, may not view the service as valuable enough to pay for. Content costs continued climbing. Netflix spent over $17 billion annually on programming, more than half of what Disney spent across all its platforms combined. The economics that had made streaming a growth story were inverting into a profitability crisis. The status quo was no longer sustainable. Wall Street demanded profitability. The easy expansion years were over. Leadership faced a choice: protect the user experience that killed piracy, or extract maximum revenue from a maturing market. They chose extraction. Netflix and its peers made a fateful choice: to squeeze more value from existing users instead of defending the experience that defeated piracy. The logic was clean on spreadsheets. Price increases would boost average revenue per user. Password sharing crackdowns would convert freeloaders into paying subscribers. Exclusive content silos would force households to maintain multiple subscriptions. Ad-supported tiers would open new revenue streams from cost-sensitive consumers. The execution was aggressive. Netflix raised prices repeatedly. The standard plan climbed from $13.99 in 2021 to $15.49 by 2022, a 94% increase since the plan's introduction at $7.99 in 2011. The premium tier hit $22.99 by late 2023, making Netflix's top plan the most expensive major streaming subscription in the market. In October 2022, Netflix introduced its first ever ad-supported tier, acknowledging that its core pricing had exceeded what many consumers would pay. Then came the password crackdown. In May 2023, Netflix officially ended widespread password sharing in the United States. The company began sending emails to subscribers, warning that accounts could only be used within a single household. Anyone else would need to pay an additional $7.99 per month for extra member access, or start their own subscription. Netflix estimated over 100 million households worldwide were using shared passwords. Disney followed the pricing playbook with even more dramatic increases. Disney Plus Premium jumped 27% in October 2023, from $10.99 to $13.99 per month, the second major increase in less than a year. Chief Executive Officer Bob Iger acknowledged publicly that Disney Plus original pricing had been strategically low to build subscriber bases, but that era was ending. Across the industry, the pattern repeated. Price hikes of 20 to 30% became routine. Content libraries shrank as licensing deals expired and were not renewed. Services removed their own original programming to save on residual payments. The user experience deteriorated visibly. Executives believed customers had no alternative. They assumed the collective action problem, that no single household could access everything without multiple subscriptions, would trap consumers in the ecosystem. They assumed piracy was a solved problem that would not return. They were wrong. Alternatives existed. The industry could have coordinated on cross-licensing deals, reducing fragmentation. Services could have bundled together at discount pricing. Platforms could have prioritized long-term retention over quarterly earnings optimization. These paths were rejected as leaving money on the table. As one streaming executive would later acknowledge, they thought they had a captive audience. It turned out audiences are never captive. Within 18 months, the consequences became undeniable. The backlash was immediate and measurable. By 2024, global piracy surged to 216.3 billion annual site visits, according to Muso. This represented an increase of 66% from 2020, when the low point was 130 billion visits. The year streaming had seemed to win definitively. Television piracy alone accounted for 96.8 billion visits, nearly 45% of all piracy traffic. The industry's own research confirmed the cause. Muso's analysis identified three converging forces driving the resurgence. First, content access fragmentation across competing platforms. Second, rising subscription costs that exceeded consumers' willingness to pay. Third, crackdowns on sharing that eliminated the informal value proposition that had made subscriptions tolerable. Consumers were vocal. Social media erupted with complaints about subscription fatigue. Surveys showed over 60% of streaming subscribers felt there were too many services and too many costs. According to Deloitte's 2023 Digital Media Trends Report, Americans spent an average of $48 per month on streaming, with half agreeing they paid too much. One-third indicated plans to reduce their subscription count. The financial consequences cascaded across the industry. Disney Plus lost 1.3 million subscribers in the 4 months following its October 2023 price increases. Churn rates, the percentage of subscribers canceling each month, increased across major platforms. Surveys found 45.7% of consumers said they were more likely to stream content illegally because of rising costs. Industry projections estimated cumulative losses from piracy-driven abandonment could reach $113 billion by 2027. The cruelest irony emerged in how piracy had evolved. Modern pirate platforms now offered aggregated libraries, combining content from all major streaming services in one place. They provided 4K streams, often with fewer ads and faster loading than legal alternatives. They charged nothing, or they charged minimal fees for premium debrid services that cost $3 to $6 per month. In other words, pirate services were now offering Netflix's original value proposition, everything in one place for one reasonable price, with maximum convenience. Muso's researchers summarized the dynamic bluntly. Piracy persists not because consumers reject legitimacy, but because legitimate options still fail to meet expectations in price, access, or timing. The comparison to other industries proved instructive. Music piracy had largely been solved by Spotify's model: one subscription, one library, reasonable pricing. Video game piracy had been blunted by Steam's convenience and sales ecosystem. These industries had maintained the core insight that drove streaming's early success: be more convenient than illegal alternatives. Streaming had abandoned that insight. Services that resisted extreme price increases or maintained broader content libraries saw relatively stronger subscriber retention, isolating the damage to strategic choices rather than macroeconomic forces. The problem was not that consumers could not afford entertainment. The problem was that legal entertainment no longer justified its price relative to free alternatives. As one viral social media comparison put it, piracy is now Netflix but better. 3 fundamental errors transformed a decade of progress into strategic collapse. Mistake number 1: confusing market power with customer loyalty. The industry assumed subscribers were locked in. They weren't. Netflix and its competitors believed that dominant market position meant customers had nowhere else to go. This violated a foundational principle: customers stay for value, not captivity. When legal streaming stopped delivering superior value, customers found alternatives, including illegal ones. What they should have done: defended convenience as the core product, recognizing that subscription numbers reflected satisfaction, not dependency. Mistake number 2: making legal access worse than illegal access. Through price increases, password crackdowns, and content fragmentation, the industry systematically degraded the user experience that had defeated piracy. By 2024, pirate sites offered more content, fewer restrictions, and lower costs than legal alternatives. This violated the lesson Netflix itself had proven: you cannot regulate your way out of a user experience problem. Enforcement campaigns never stopped piracy. Convenience did. When convenience disappeared, piracy returned. What they should have done: kept legal access unquestionably superior to illegal alternatives, even if that meant accepting lower per-subscriber revenue. Mistake number 3. Optimizing for short-term revenue at the expense of ecosystem health. Each streaming service treated its balance sheet as independent from the broader market. Price increases that boosted one company's margins degraded the value proposition for consumers across all services. The collective result, subscription fatigue, hurt everyone while benefiting no one. What they should have done: recognized that industry-wide coordination on pricing and content access would preserve the ecosystem that made streaming viable. The fundamental lesson is simple. You don't defeat disruption by squeezing customers. You defeat it by being better than the alternative. Netflix proved that convenience kills piracy. The streaming industry forgot that lesson, and the market remembered it for them. Today, piracy traffic exceeds pre-Netflix levels. The war that was won has been lost. And the industry that spent 15 years building something remarkable is watching it unravel because they forgot why it worked.